Hello, and welcome to Dark Hearts with Stacy Lee. It's Cult Day here on Dark Hearts. I've reached a point in my cult research where it's almost impossible to avoid the thing I hate more than anything else on earth, politics. Unless I'm talking about a cult from more than 10 years ago, it's getting harder and harder to find new cult stories for you that don't revolve around either Christian nationalism or extreme Islam or just Jesus in general. Poor Jesus. Why is he always getting dragged into everything? That's just the state of the world. So I'm going to preface this story by saying I don't choose these stories based on any political ideology. If you can find me a cult story about a crazy atheist or far left cult, send it to me immediately. I will cover it in a heartbeat. I choose these stories based on how interesting they are and cult stories based on how wacky and dangerous they are. And today, These are the stories that should scare us all. Extremism in any form should scare us all, whether it's people screaming, all cops are bastards, which I don't agree with, or people screaming about ignoring the Constitution and putting the 10 Commandments in schools, which I don't agree with. Extremism in any form is bad. And today, these kooks are just about as extreme as it gets. This is the horrifying story of the Rod of Iron Ministries. I'm your host, Stacy Lee. Let's begin. First, a bit of background. In the 1950s, a man named Sun Myung Moon founded the Holy Spirit Association for the Unification of World Christianity. Boy, that's catchy. And this movement expanded rapidly through South Korea. It eventually reached around the world and became the cult commonly known as the Moonies. You've most likely heard of the Moonies because in the 1970s, that cult became the subject of a lot of controversy. We're going to cover the Moonies here soon. Also, I apologize if I am butchering these names. I looked up the pronunciations online and I'm doing the best that I can here. Sun Myung, like all other cult leaders, claimed to have regular personal chats with Jesus. His particular deity is Jesus. And he claimed that Jesus appeared to him multiple times. And that started happening on Easter weekend in 1936. I will leave most of the story of the Moonies for the day we talk about them. But Sun Myung Moon and his wife, Hak Ja Han, had 16 children. 14 of those children were a result of the marriage between the cult leader and his wife. The youngest son of these 14 kids is a man named Hyung Jin Moon, who was born in 1979, and he goes by Sean Moon, thankfully for my pronunciation. Sean has taken his father and mother's zealotry and amped it up about 1,000 degrees. This story, just buckle up. That's all I gotta say. Buckle up. Sean Moon worked within the Moonies for many years, and there are a lot of theories about family jealousy, tensions rising in the family, things like that. This is a tale as old as time. A father starts a cult, the boys are raised in the cult, and then at some point, one of the brothers or one of the sons decides that he should be the leader because he has surpassed his father. And then there's a fight for power. We see this over and over in the polygamist Mormon sects. We've seen it in other small churches, and it seems that Sean Moon was having some issues with the way things were done in his father's church. Sean's brothers are just as extreme as he is. Sean was in college in 1999 when his brother Philip, who was just a year older than Sean, jumped out the 17th floor window of a Las Vegas hotel, taking his life. This apparently affected Sean greatly. They were very close in age, of course, only being a year apart. Shortly after his brother's death, Sean went to a doctor and had this doctor withdraw a pint of his own blood. And then he used the blood to paint a giant canvas that had something to do with his name. Nothing to see here, folks. Everything's fine. Nothing kooky going on here at all. I'm not going to lie. I paint, if you don't know. I always laugh a little bit when people paint with their own blood like no one's ever done that before. It's like, it's a little try hard at this point. In 2012, Sun Myung Moon, the founder of the Moonies, died. And it did not take long for things to go to pot in the family. The family buried their father and enshrined his big old bejeweled crown. Look at this big crown. Somebody wants to be a pretty, pretty princess very badly. And then they set about arguing what they were going to do next. Sean Moon and his mother had a big falling out. Sean claims that his mother kind of tried to shut him out of the cult because she felt like he wanted to take over, which he did, and she wanted to be in charge. So he claims that she used all of her authority as the wife of the dead founder to kind of push him out the door. So, of course, this leads to what? Well, of course, it led to Sean stating that he was the true prophet and the chosen one, and that, of course, he needed to start his own religion. Sean and his wife splinter off from the Moonies and start an offshoot sect named World Peace and Unification Sanctuary Church. These guys are just not very good at picking names. I mean... The church was established in 2013, but didn't officially open and begin accepting new members until 2015. That same year, Sean Moon renounced his mother, publicly calling her the whore of Babylon. Wow, that's actually just disgusting. I mean, it is your mother, you know. Sean said that his mother was no longer the true mother, and he said that one of his disciples, Hyun Shil Kong, was now true mother. I guess the term true mother and true father is something, it's a big deal in the Moonies. Before Sun died, he was referred to as true father, and his wife was referred to as true mother. Cults are always the same. They're always about putting the founders or the leaders at a higher level than everyone else. Somebody always has more power, more access to God, more status than everyone else, which is one of the paramounts of a cult. There is always an unquestioning prophet or a leader that you are not allowed to question, not allowed to badmouth. For a while, Sean's new cult was based in Pennsylvania, just a few miles outside of Scranton. But around 2018, things started to change. Sean Moon started using the term Rod of Iron Ministries instead of World Peace and Unification Sanctuary. The church was located in this sad little rundown building that served as a community theater for a long time. They didn't have any pews. There was just like a little semicircle of seats facing the stage. And then Sean would stand up on that stage in front of an altar and give his sermons. A few years ago, a reporter for the Washington Post attended one of these meetings, and this reporter writes, on a Sunday morning in late February, 38-year-old pastor Hyung Jin Sean Moon, son of late Reverend Sun Myung Moon, entered stage right wearing a white hoodie and cargo pants. He strapped on a leather headband and picked up a microphone. He then said, "Okay, take it away," to the electric pianist and the two female vocalists who functioned as the choir. They launched into the first of four songs. Four songs in a row at church. Just knock me unconscious. The reporter says that there were about 200 people in the room because this was a big deal. Normally, there were only about 75 people in the meetings, but it was a special day. I'll get to that. As the choir sang, Sean stood by his front row seat and waved his hands around like an orchestra director that didn't know what they were doing, like just kind of flapped his arms around. I don't know why that's funny to me. Then Sean looked at the crowd and said, "Look at all these crowns of sovereignty." What does he mean by that? Well, let me show you a photo that was taken on that day. Apparently, everyone is a king and a queen in their own portion of God's kingdom in this cult. So everyone gets a crown. Boy, if that ain't the most snowflake participation trophy thing I have ever heard. It's always so funny to me how some extremists, they start really far right or really far left, and they go so far around that they come back and meet in the middle. They're actually on the opposite end of where they claim to be, but they're so far up their own asses that they don't even realize it. You get to be a king, and you get to be a king, and you're a queen, and you're a queen. It is literally participation trophy hell. I find this stuff endlessly fascinating and just endlessly funny. Oh, I'm here talking about crowns. And you're looking at what? What are you looking at in the photo? Oh, all the guns? Did you notice all the guns? I bet you noticed all the guns. Oh, we're getting there. Believe me, we're getting there. The crowd that you see in this photo is twice as big as usual because this was a rehearsal. It was a day of like a warm-up. The author of the article says for all the couples that were going to renew their marriage vows. So not only do you get a crown, but you get to relive your wedding. It's like cosplay for dangerous lunatics. A lot of people that you see in the congregation on the day of the photo have flown in from Japan and Korea to participate in what is called Cosmic True Parents of Heaven, Earth, and Humanity Chunguk Book of Life Registration Blessing. That's the name of the ceremony. I'm not even kidding. Like I said, they're worst at names, the worst at coming up with names. The marriage vow renewal was going to cap off a week of activities for this worst festival name ever thing. And that week included an art festival, a survival skills contest, and a goat butchering demonstration. I'm not going to bother trying to figure out how those things go together. So this reporter attends this meeting and they publish the story, and it causes kind of a stir in the area because the existence of the cult had been unknown previous. It hadn't even been mentioned in the Pocono Record, which is the daily newspaper. Nobody really knew that this cult had moved into the area. As information got out about the cult, people in the area grew more and more concerned, with good reason, because kooky wedding ceremonies and goat butchering, well, those things were just the tip of the iceberg. Word begins to spread that this church is not anything people in the area are accustomed to seeing. And when it gets out that this is an offshoot of the Moonies, alarm bells start ringing. But anyone who was concerned should have been hoping for the Moonies. They should have been wishing and praying for the Moonies because the Rod of Iron Ministries is the Moonies on crack. Sean Moon has some of the most dangerously bizarre beliefs I have ever heard of, and that's saying a lot. First off, one of the most fundamental beliefs in the Rod of Iron Ministries is the importance of owning not just a gun, but an AR-15. This cult is obsessed doesn't cover it. The AR-15 is looked at as some sort of magical, even supernatural object. They worship it. They pray over it. Do you remember a couple of weeks ago when we talked about the Knights of the Crystal Blade and I went on a rant about the book of Revelations and how that particular book was never meant to apply to modern people or modern days, and that biblical scholars agree it is nothing more than a collection of writings to assuage ancient people's fears about death. I talked about how the book of Revelations has caused more problems and death and war, the fact that it's just silly the way some people want to apply that book to anything they can possibly tie it to. I just gave you a little condensed mini version of that rant. Add this story to the evidence of everything I said in the rant. Sean Moon proclaims that, get this, the rod of iron mentioned in the book of Revelations is not what most people think it is, a metaphor about staying on the straight and narrow in order to return to God, holding to the iron rod to get you home at the end of your life. Nope, that's not what Sean says it is. Sean says the ancient writers of the book of Revelations that didn't even know what steel or chemistry was, were actually writing about an AR-15, which is the true rod of iron. Yes, the AR-15, according to Sean Moon, the AR-15, which is made out of aluminum alloy, by the way, not iron, is what the book of Revelation, a book we don't even know the author of. They think it's some guy named John the Elder, but no one knows. That's what they're talking about in the book of Revelations. The iron rod is not a metaphor for Jesus being the ultimate measuring stick. It's not the word of God. It's not any of those things that other religious people claim it to be. The rod of iron is an AR-15. Sometimes I feel like I get dumber when I do these episodes. Okay. Sean Moon goes on to say that in the book of Revelations, it says that because Christ is not a tyrant, he will need armed sovereigns to help him keep peace within his kingdom. Will you people pick a lane? Will you pick a lane? This is just like Lori and Chad, who said that Christ is going to call the most faithful on earth, the 144,000, because he needs their help. Christ is going to need their help when he comes back to earth. 1 minute, Jesus is all powerful, God, ruler of earth, all knowing, all seeing. And the next minute, he needs 150 lunatics with guns to help him keep order because he's just that weak. Which is it? Somebody clue me in. Which is it? Sean then tells his little group of followers, blessed couples are requested to bring AR-15s or equivalents to our services. This was like the first time they were asked to bring their guns. The day after he makes that announcement, the Parkland shooter killed 17 people at a high school in Florida with an AR-15. So the media picked up on Sean's statements somehow. I don't know how. He had made these public statements and posted them on this little webcast thing that he does. And somebody in the Scranton area must have been monitoring him, because when he made those statements about the AR-15, and then there was this horrific tragedy involving an AR-15, it didn't go over so well. Sean then retaliated. He did not like the criticism. He started putting out a bunch of social media posts. Many of them were reposts from Trump. And then he said, the way of the rod of iron is the way of love. As a gun owner myself, guns mean and represent a lot of things to me. Love is not one of those things. Love is not... Yeah, I'm not going to bother. The cult then purchased a parcel of about 200 acres in Tennessee and started doing these training camp things there. You can see here kids with chains and sledgehammers whacking a large tire. I guess this is for strength training. Here is what I do not understand. Here is something I have asked in my own personal life. I have asked people on Facebook that are apocalypse preppers or very far right wing, and no one has ever been able to give me an answer. What are you training for? If you are training with your gun to protect your family during a robbery or a home invasion, great. That's what I practice shooting for. If you want to own a gun, great. I have several. You know, I am also in favor of registering guns and tracking guns, just like we do with cars, motorcycles, boats, trailers, ATVs, kids that flip burgers, people who catch fish in a lake, all the other things we license and track. Keep your guns, but be a responsible gun owner. Fine. If you're a responsible gun owner, why do you care about registering your gun? Why do you care about carrying some insurance in case you have a kid that goes off the rails and does something with your gun? Ain't nobody trying to take your guns. I don't want anybody taking mine. But what in the hell are you training for? I don't understand. Do people know so little about our military that they think they're going to fight the military? Do people think so little of our soldiers that they think the military is going to be like, no, we don't like this president or that president, so we're not going to fight the gravy seals that want a war with us? Because I got some bad news for you. There will be a handful of traitors in the military, but not that many. The entire principle of the military is that it is the hammer for the person in charge. One person is in charge, they are commander in chief, and that person uses the military. How do these apocalyptic prepper, end of the world, end of the democracy people think? Let's say there's 1,000 of them. Let's say 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, 50,000. Let's say there are 50,000 people with guns. Are they going to fight a drone strike that is launched by the press of a button from Area 57? I'm being dead serious. I ask this question all the time. Say there's 50,000 people with guns. They're just going to get blasted from above. I'm not being facetious. I'm genuinely asking, do they not understand this? What are they training for? What are the gun nuts training for? No one's ever been able to answer that question for me. If you have a gun to protect your family, fine, great. Nobody has a problem with that. Is it just some like weird cowboy fantasy? I just don't get it. I can't wrap my head around it, because you have to be an idiot to believe you're going to fight the government. In this particular photo with this one crazy cult, they're learning martial arts. That's a great skill to have, but you're not going to fight the government with jujitsu. I don't know why I always put myself through this, trying to be rational about people that are completely irrational. I don't know. Word starts to get around Tennessee about this cult. And so they put out some propaganda to explain what they're all about. They put out this little video. So watch this.
We love Tennessee. We love the people of Tennessee. We love its conservative Christian values, and that's why we're here.
A new religious group is setting up a branch in East Tennessee. Rod of Iron Ministries is based in Pennsylvania. It's looking to expand its supporters. The group recently purchased 225 acres in Granger County. And tonight, reporter Mary Klingler takes us to that site, and we hear from one member of that group about why East Tennessee.
We believe that the kingdom of heaven is a society of armed citizens, okay? So everybody in the kingdom of heaven, we believe, should be armed.
This religious group wants to set up new roots in East Tennessee.
We're not here to convert anybody. We're here just to promote freedom.
Rod of Iron Ministries Administrator Greg Nall says the ministry has a basic set of principles. He's been a supporter for decades and says people have no reason to fear their ministry.
Well, the gun really does represent strength, peace through strength. You know, if you have a gun in self-defense, the criminal or the predator will back off.
Rod of Iron Ministry is pushing back on national media attention that focuses on the use of AR-15 weapons in some of their worship services. They're also pushing back on being called a cult.
These are kind of like leftist kind of labels put on us, but really in essence it's true. We do put America first. We do believe in the Second Amendment as the last bastion of freedom in this country.
Now that Rod of Iron Ministries has purchased more than 200 acres in Granger County, their vision for the future of this scenic land near Bean Station is clear.
A place where people can come for prayer, for nature walks. There's going to be beautiful gardens here in the future, orchards, raised garden beds, and a place, trails, many trails on this property. It's the Garden of Eden. That's what we want to do.
Sean Moon starts appearing in public in a crown made out of bullets. He starts broadcasting a live webcast he calls The King's Report from a room near his kitchen. This is a photo of him doing his little webcast. He sits at a desk with his AR-15 right front and center. He's wearing his bullet crown and a camouflage jacket he bought on eBay. He told one of the reporters he buys his clothes on eBay. He mainly interviews gun nuts and reposts clips produced by the NRA. But as the months go by, the podcast gets crazier and crazier. It starts to go off the rails. Sean starts reposting Alex Jones' paranoia-laden rants, and then he starts talking about Oprah Winfrey. He gets really obsessed with Oprah, saying that she worships Satan and that she's possessed by demons. Then he starts saying that God has spoken to him and told him, this is so stupid, Hillary Clinton is Eve, who is responsible for the fall of man, and Donald Trump is can't even get through this. And Donald Trump is Adam, who wants to bring judgment on the evil world and restore it back to the Garden of Eden. I wish I was kidding. Sean then says 9/11 was a false flag, and he says some pretty nasty things about that entire event in general, some things about first responders. I'm not going to go into all of that, but he calls for the execution of Democrats who don't realize Trump is coming to get them. So, I don't care what your politics are, but when you start calling for people to be executed and start calling for people to be murdered, that's just insane. I don't care what political party you belong to. It goes for the left, goes for the right, it goes for everyone. You don't call for the death of another human being. Sean gets himself on the radar of the Southern Poverty Law Center, which is a very powerful group that monitors hate groups. And the Southern Poverty Law Center labels the Rod of Iron Ministries an extreme hate group. He starts railing on gay people and trans people. It's like, sing a new song, dude. Sing a new song. It wasn't that long ago that you, Sean, being Asian, were on the receiving end of racism and hate. And a lot of people still are. And how soon you forget. It's so funny to me. I always go back to that saying that says, if you can convince the lowest man that he's better than someone else, you can pick his pocket. And I'm not saying that gay people are low or Asian people are low. Of course, that's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is that why don't people that were persecuted at one point realize they're in the same category as people who are still persecuted? As a white woman, I will never know what it feels like to be persecuted. But I was also raised by people that seeing yourself above somebody was a bad thing. You weren't ever supposed to see yourself as better than someone or above someone. That was like a negative thing. I just want everyone to be treated equally. I just want everyone to have equity. I just want everyone to have a seat at the table. But it's weird for me to watch someone from a minority group be so hateful towards another minority group. It's always weird to me, not just in this occasion. And like I said, as a white person, I know that I don't have a voice in the conversation. I think the thing that bothers me the most is many people are not going to look at this guy and say, look at this kooky extremist wacko. They're going to say, look at this kooky extremist Asian wacko. They're going to bring race into it. And that is unfortunate for all Asians. If this guy was a white guy, they wouldn't say, look at this kooky extremist white guy. But you know they're going to say, look at this kooky extremist Asian guy. And I hate that. Sean is really going off the rails at this point, and he chooses a female disciple of his to posthumously marry his father. I mean, I can't act like I think this is the craziest thing I've ever heard. Mormons do baptisms for dead people and temple sessions for dead people. So marrying someone posthumously is far from the weirdest thing I've ever heard. But they have this marriage ceremony. You can see here, Sean is holding his dead father's pretty princess crown and his robe. And the woman he's marrying is Hyun Shil Kong, that disciple of his that he said was true mother. And then this is Sean's wife on the right. Her name is Yeon Al Lee Moon. The cult then buys more property. This time it's in Texas. The Texans are kind of confused when the cult comes in. They don't have any issues with the guns, of course, but they do think it's weird that the cult worships guns and blesses its guns. The Texans are also genuinely curious as to what the cult is all about.
Folks at limestone lunch counters love to talk these days about their new neighbors. Who has tongues wagging around these parts? Well, it's a family of sorts with some strong convictions. Nothing unusual about that in Texas. But folks with deep roots here can't help but wonder what this family has planned.
I believe they have the right to own property, to practice their religion, just like I do. And as long as they abide by the laws, and I support their right to do that.
What or who has raised so many eyebrows at Lake Limestone and beyond?
The person who is in Christ is greater than any superhero you see on the silver screen. That means the movies.
Meet the Reverend Sean Moon, youngest son of the founder of the Unification Church. He started turning up at this Lake Limestone RV park in Marina earlier this year. At one time, some called followers of the Reverend Sun Myung Moon, his father, Moonies, amid whispers of the Unification Church becoming a kind of cult. His son Sean has taken this particular brand of Christianity down a bit of a different path.
Protect the country.
In his own church, first called the World Peace and Unification Sanctuary.
Christians say I'm a cult leader, and they say you're cult members. Well, they said that about Jesus Christ too, didn't they?
Moon's church, based in a town near Scranton, Pennsylvania, follows the usual Christian beliefs with a couple of extras. Moon believes a reference to a rod of iron in the book of Revelation refers to firearms. Did I mention his brother is an arms dealer with close ties to the church? As this video from the Associated Press shows, those fucks love them some guns, especially the AK-47. And this politically conservative group has great reverence for anything involving former President Donald Trump.
Would you please like me?
For the most part, the cult is seen as odd and weird, but it continues to get worse. On the day of the insurrection, January 6th, Sean Moon, who was there, praised the insurrectionists who, quote, took dominion of the satanic temple, the U.S. Capitol. So now our Capitol building is satanic? That's like offensive to me as an American. I'm a pretty patriotic person, and when people say shit like that, it makes me mad. Sean Moon showed up on the day of the insurrection. He claims to have been tear gassed, but he refuses to say much else about what happened, probably because he doesn't want to end up in jail for being an insurrectionist. Rolling Stone sent a reporter to stay with the cult for a little while and do a really deep dive on the group, kind of feel it out and return with an impression. And it was not good. The reporter states that the cult is now manufacturing its own guns. One of Sean's many brothers has actually purchased a gun manufacturing plant, which I guess, fine. It's not like it's hard to get guns at Walmart. If they want to make their own guns, who cares? It doesn't change anything for me as far as my question questions as to what they think they're going to do with all of these guns. The company is called Carr Firearms Group, and it's headquartered in Greeley, Pennsylvania. It's spelled K-A-H-R. The gun company is part of a coalition with the church and other gun promotion groups called the No Compromise Alliance. Well, that sounds like a fun group of people, doesn't it? And I love people that don't compromise. They're the best kind of people. Sean has stopped just short of making threats against President Biden, saying he has usurped the once Judeo-Christian Republic of America. He then says, God is telling us to become his hands and feet. Just like Stuart Rhodes of Oath Keepers said, all the Trump people must now be activated to become part of civil defense forces, neighborhood defense forces, whatever you want to call it. Defense against what? You are sitting in a compound, driving a luxury vehicle, watching an 80-inch TV, fighting against what? You're talking like you're in Palestine. Those people are actually at risk. Those people are actually in a war. What are we fighting against? I just honestly think these people are divas. I think they're drama queens. I think they're living in a fantasy world where they want to have some shoot 'em up, Wild West standoff. And what they don't understand is that they're just going to get dead really quick. It's silly to me and it's embarrassing. These people are adults. Sean Moon puts out a webcast where he's praising the Bundys. The Bundys are from my area. They're the self-proclaimed cowboys that didn't want to pay their BLM fees like the rest of the farmers who use BLM have to do. I actually should do a story on the Bundys. I'll cover the Bundys so you guys can learn all about that. You'll probably remember it from a few years ago. They holed up in a building in Oregon and refused to leave. Anyways, I'll cover that story. They now have a steakhouse here in town. And I went. I gave it a try. But Moon goes on to say, the Stalinistic curse machine is coming. There should be 100 Bundy ranches. It should be like that everywhere. So if they try to come for one, they come for all. Nobody came for the Bundys, my guy. They didn't want to pay their grazing fees to the BLM. It just wasn't that sexy. I am tired. So why should we care? At the end of the day, whenever we talk about cults, the question is always, why should we care? Now, I haven't read anything about abusing children inside this cult. Doesn't mean it isn't happening, but I did not come across anything like that while researching. So already this cult, in my eyes, is not as dangerous as some, because there are others out there that are committing heinous acts against children. But the cult is very homophobic, very transphobic, and it is very misogynistic. Those things are dangerous. Those things hurt people. And it is always so funny to me. The people who scream the loudest and the longest about their freedoms are the first to want to take freedom from other people. It will never make sense to me. To me, it shows a lack of intelligence, and it also screams self-loathing. If a man is so insecure that a gay man just existing is a problem for him, that man is telling on himself. He's either got homosexual feelings himself and he's self-loathing, or he's just a teeny weeny little person, if you get my drift, who needs someone to pick on. Either way, it matters. Whenever anyone is a bigot for any reason at all, it should matter to all of us. I also think we have to keep an eye on people that actually worship guns as some sort of magical instrument, because that's just unhinged. A gun is a tool. Do you worship a hammer? Do you worship a rake? Do you worship a hunting knife? No? So yeah, it's weird when people are actually worshiping inanimate objects of any kind, but especially when they're so obsessed with guns that the gun has pretty much become a phallic object. It's just weird as hell. And finally, I think it matters because this is a group of people who want to force their will onto others. I don't care what kind of cult we talk about. I'm going to make fun of most cults because I just think they're silly and wacky, but I have yet to come across a cult that is not dangerous at all. The least dangerous cult I've researched are the UFO cults. The Love Has Won cult. Those people were only dangerous to themselves. So they're farther down on the list, but any group of people who want to force their will onto other people, they're dangerous, period. You are entitled to believe whatever you want to believe, but do not attempt to force me to believe what you believe. And if I refuse to believe what you want me to believe, and you think you're going to use an AR-15 to help persuade me, well, that makes you a terrorist. And that's why this matters. Thank you for joining me today on Dark Hearts with Stacy Lee. Please hit the like button if you like the video and subscribe to the channel if you want to support me. It helps so much. I'm on my kind of last push to try and stay here on YouTube. I won't tell you, well, I will tell you what my promoter thinks. My promoter thinks that I am, what's that thing you see in the parking lot when the sun's shining on you and you see it in the parking lot? I'm that, BANNED, for some reason. I don't know. I've got 2 podcasts. This one is Dining with Death. This is an archival series. There are some really good stories here. It's just the audio taken from the video episodes I posted to YouTube years ago. This is the current podcast, Dark Hearts with Stacy Lee. I post every Monday and every Wednesday, and both podcasts are on Apple, Spotify, and Amazon. If you haven't yet, would you please go and give me a rating? I have a lot of listeners that haven't left ratings, and that kind of bumps me down a little bit. Just whatever podcast platform you use, just go there and jump on and give me a rating. That would be awesome. You can also join my Patreon. Some of you give a few dollars a month to help me keep the episodes coming, and that is greatly appreciated. And you can also join our fundraiser. If you watch this video right here on my channel, it's a few minutes long, and it will explain to you everything our community is doing to raise money to donate to police departments that have cold case DNA in storage that's never been tested. We're about halfway to our first goal. I hope you're doing well. I want you to know how much I appreciate you. Some of you guys have been with me for years, and I look forward to talking with you. Take care, my friends. Stay safe and be kind to each other. And I will see you next time on Dark Hearts with Stacy Lee. Bye.